Welcome to Built for This, the podcast where real estate meets real life skills. Hosted by Andrea Lane and Alyssa Bicar, each episode features investors turning their unique edge into long-term rental success.
Hello and welcome back to the Built for This podcast. I am your co-hostess, Alyssa Bicar, the consultress, bringing you real conversations with people who are obsessed with real estate, who are bringing their personal passions and their career acumen to the table to build lifelong legacy and wealth. Andrea Lane, my fearless real estate investor co-host. Who do we have for him today?
So today we have someone who's originally from Texas, but is now in Boise, Idaho. Great place to invest. Kannon Callis is a residential realtor. In addition, he is a property manager and he has flipped properties and is currently living in his one home that he owns, and he's going to build more this year. So, Kannon, I'm really excited to have you here. Thank you for coming. My favorite question, why did you get into real estate investing?
Thanks, Andrea. And that's a good question. A lot of people I know accidentally got into real estate investing. About 3/4 of everyone I know, it seems like they have one rental and they don't really know if that's where they want to stop or if that's the direction they want to go. But I intend to go, full on into it. I think that I've seen since I was a teenager what it can do for yourself, for your family, and for the opportunities it can create. And I'm just excited for the multiplication it can provide in someone's life. So for me, it's that way to create freedom.
Great. And what do you love most about real estate?
Most, I would say, working with people. I sold software prior to COVID, all through COVID, working from virtual and remote, but there was nothing like getting in the same room as someone and being able to actually work in your community, locally, and know the people you're working with. And so, that's one of my favorite things about.
I love that because real estate is all about people, right? Not about houses, not about property. And so if you don't love people, you're really in the wrong business. So that's great. Being out there, meeting people, talking, handshaking, it's what I love to do most.
So
So
how
go
did you go from software to property management? I mean, we got the opportunity to learn a little bit of the backstory and owning a property management company and then doing the services of like serving those properties. Like it seems like that's your gateway. That's like your real estate gateway drug, right? So tell us how did you make that shift from software into property management?
Yeah, I actually was doing leasing for multifamily student housing while I was in school at University of North Texas. And I kind of just got a job there. I didn't know what to expect of it. And it was really fun, but also we made an impact locally, for the students and for other people. And then that was what really piqued my interest. And it was just a leasing and management job there. It was about 200 units in Denton, Texas. And we went from that one to I was actually had a mentor in school that owned local investment properties. He owned 8 of them in Denton, and he lived in Dallas, which is about 40 minutes or so. And he didn't like driving back and forth to manage it. So he asked me to help out, and I did what I could do. By the time we ended that relationship, as I graduated, I went straight into commercial real estate. So I actually started out in real estate, and then I got pulled from real estate to doing software sales. I was really good at it, and that's what kept me with it. Did all types of software sales, fintech, healthcare tech, real estate tech was my last job. And then that's kind of what got me really back into it, is I was working with real estate investors the last several years.
Yeah, prop tech is a big thing right now as everybody disrupts all of the systems and processes to get with the program, to get efficiencies and economies of scale. I love that. So when so it sounds like, we always ask about, your background, your career and how that kind of parlays into your strategy now. It sounds like you had a few building blocks that pre-qualified you to kind of understand the lay of the land of investing in real estate. And I, I love what you said about accidental landlords. People are like, they got into it, they got a rental or two. Like, this is how the obsession starts. This is where it percolates.
True.
For me, that was buying my own home and buying a rental property or two or three or four. And then, that's where the lights come on. Oh, I need better systems. So, who is the population that you're serving and how are you learning from them while making a business of serving the real estate investor space as well?
Yeah, that's a good question. I work with all types of persona types, right? I work with your first time home buyers, seasoned investors that are building townhomes, that are building large, communities out here, and we're leasing up different units as they become available from new construction. I'm also working with single family homeowners that are near Micron headquarters, which is really expanding here. So we have a lot of jobs coming in locally that are contractors and they're looking for fully furnished units. And that's what I started out as here is, fully furnished. And so we do all types of real estate. We'll work with buyers and sellers, investor, landlords, pretty much anyone. We're trying to be kind of a all-in-one solution here. And the systems that I've used in the past across my tech jobs have enabled me to manage uh, more efficiently and communicate very effectively through the process. So it's been really easy to actually do it. I thought it would be very hard, but it's growing pretty fast, and I have to be bringing on additional team members here soon.
As amazing. So growing a business that has you talking to all the people and having all the conversations. This is where Andrea kind of like when I met her, she was like, "Your network is your net worth." She was like screaming it from the
Yep.
rooftops. Um, Andrea, kind of what are you hearing in Cannon's journey here so far?
Yeah, no, I love the fact that you keep finding your way back to real estate, first of all. That's like, to me, that's saying, well, this is really where you belong.
Yeah.
Um, I think that 90% of the people I meet are accidental landlords to start, which is why we started our business because so many people buy a property. They don't buy a business, they don't understand a business, and they don't know how to make what they've bought into something really worthwhile and a legacy, even though they bought the dream. I'm going to buy a house, put in a tenant, make lots of money, and I'm not going to have to work for it.
Right.
And that, boy, is that a dream. That's a dream I want. I haven't achieved it yet. It takes a little while to make that happen. I don't know. Maybe after 100 years I'll be there, but I'm not there yet. So, I really like that way you're scaling up. I like that well, personally, I hate property management. I used to manage more than 600 properties. I can't stand it. But it's a very good field when you're getting into real estate to be into property management. You meet all the players, you're out there playing the game without having to, jump in with all the money that you may not have or may not be able to raise immediately, right? So it's
Yep.
a great way of getting into real estate. I highly recommend it for people who are just beginning. Like, that's a great pathway up, as long as your pathway doesn't stop there and you start the investing and putting the money in for you. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, that's the game plan.
Right on. So tell us a little bit of the horror stories. Like everybody wants to know, like, what are some of the lessons, the hard won lessons in the pursuit of becoming a real estate investor, in your identity, in playing in the space and being part of the industry as a service provider? What are some of the lessons you've learned recently, the hard way?
Yeah, I've got a couple right off the top of my head. The
How
first one
long do
is
we have, Alyssa? Yeah, go ahead.
The first one is when I first bought a house in Texas. It was the height of the market. I believe it was summer of 2021 or 2022. And prices had hit like an all-time high. And my wife and I had decided this is a good time to buy a house. And we decided we were going to buy a fixer-upper and a little bit further away from where we usually lived because we were used to being right in the middle of everything, really central. But this was an investment property. And so we moved into it. I'm flipping it. Put a lot of time and a lot of energy and resources into making that house really, really nice. And it was great. We lived in it for an extra year because I was like, I don't really want to move now. So um, then I listed the house. And mind you, I've been professional in real estate for years before this, licensed in Texas, and I know how to do it. And it sat for 6 months and I had to sell it for less than I had bought it for after I put like, yeah, including how much I invested into this property. So it basically the story I learned was if you're going to invest into a neighborhood, don't make it the nicest house in the neighborhood because the comps and the surroundings, they're not the same level. And so the buyers might not, be looking in that area. And so I learned that, and it was definitely a lesson the hard way, right? It basically doubled my, college education costs. So
Yeah. Oh,
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 yeah,
it's like a lesson in understanding your location well, right? That's the first lesson
so
in
true.
know where you are, understand block by block, because you can be 2 blocks away from gold, but the 2 blocks is going to put you in, I don't know, maybe lead. So you want to
Yeah.
that you're in the right area, right? That's something that's so important for people to understand. And so you bought in a neighborhood you thought was good because you lived there, but it was a couple of blocks away and it wasn't as good.
Yep. Yeah, I took the advice of my buddy who has a brokerage there who said that he's got some rental properties in the area and he's like these are definitely appreciating. I'll expect this number within this time frame and didn't go as planned.
well, so, and also what I'm hearing is the exit strategy that's worked for the person who gave you the advice was buy, renovate, hold, and
Mhm.
reap over time. So, like,
Yes.
if you were going to buy it, renovate it, and then sell it at market, the profitability is different than if you were going to buy it and hold it and rent it. So, like,
Exactly.
a couple of lessons here. I just want to tease out the over improvement problem. Know your market, know your local zip code, but and your block, like Andrea said, but also understanding, where are my possible exits? A lot of times, we talk about here, and Andrea talks about all the time, the money's made on the buy. So if you know that this is a good exit strategy to improve and flip to increase your value, but also if you could buy it and then hold it and rent it, and or maybe you're going to sell it on terms at that point. Like there's so many different ways to make profitability inside of your strategy on the way in. But again, I didn't know this when I bought my
Right.
first property. You didn't know this when you bought, like, so
Yeah.
the one thing I had to unlearn was I was driving around neighborhoods going, oh, this looks like a great neighborhood. And I'm like, this is what I'm like, ooh, I want to live here. That is a disqualifier for my buy box. Like, ooh, I want to
Right.
live here is not, ooh, I should invest here. And I like my intuition, like I had my lines crossed a little bit, I had to rewire. But once I learned that lesson, I was like, oh, okay. So, as you're building your strategy and as you're looking to acquire and kind of build your own portfolio, what does the next 6 to 12 months of growth look like for you as an investor?
Yeah, I've got a plan right now. So, the house I'm living in now, we rented the first 2 years from a family member, and then we bought it from her this spring. And we're planning on buying another house next year, but keeping this one as a rental. And I'm already managing a few fully furnished rentals with utilities and internet included. And we're considering making this a fully furnished just to get that little bit more of a premium. Because if you're looking at the rental rates and the cost, you can mark them up a little bit. And so we're right next to a hospital. There's a few, the whole area around us is really developing. Like this area would have been really good to buy when I bought in Texas. Like it would have been perfect. But now everything's appreciating here still. And so they're projecting about a 4% increase in home values here in the Treasure Valley, Idaho next year. And probably hold this one for a very long time and just continue to pay it down and then just maybe borrow against it to buy another and just repeat that over and over.
That's a great strategy. One of the things that Alyssa may have alluded to is when I get into a deal, we always have two exit strategies, always. So I don't buy a property that I can rehab and sell that I can't also rent. So if it doesn't make sense for me to do one and both, then it doesn't make sense for me to buy it because like the market starts to slow a little bit. Well, I don't want to sell it today because I'm not going to get the money I want. I love rentals. By the way, I hate selling anything. The properties that I hate the most are either the ones I didn't buy or the ones I sold. So no matter how bad a property is, if I own it, it's good. So, um, but there's always has to be, what are you going to do if, right? And so you always look at both strategies. And it sounds like you've learned your lesson that if you're not going to sell it, you're going to be able to rent it or vice versa. If rentals go
Yeah.
out, that means that it's a great opportunity for you to sell to a population moving in, right? So,
Yeah.
been on either end.
Right on. So, when it comes to your operation now, like this, I'm gonna switch the questions from real estate specific to entrepreneurship specific. We heard a little bit of this story where it was I was working inside a company, property management,
Mhm.
commercial real estate, software, sales, right? Now you are chief cook and bottle washer, perhaps. Hoeing the road for yourself, planting all the seeds, harvesting the yield at some point, right? So, in terms of your entrepreneurial journey, what are some of the things that you've noticed that cause you to have to grow as a person? Some things you may not have expected from like the corporate space or from the employee space that have surprised you, but also challenged you that you needed to overcome in this process of, being your own boss.
Yeah, yeah, I've always thought pretty big, especially in sales, trying to hit, higher quotas every year and every quarter and just kind of setting new records. But in business, I've learned that it's not always at your speed. And it's sometimes at what the speed the universe or the world is ready for, not necessarily what you think that you're ready for. So I've had to kind of work on my mindset a little bit and manage my expectations of what success actually means and how long term this goal really is. Um, the financial side of things is a whole nother story where I think people should actually plan 3 to 5x what they think they should be planning for. Because when I had the full time job, it was easy to just fund this, as a side business. When I quit the full time job, I had to plan ahead of time for here's my roadmap, here's my landing or takeoff, strip, or I crash, right? And so I think if I would have did it again, or if I would have started again in August, I would have planned a little bit more into that budget. But it's making me be more lean, and it's making me more creative and strategic with my systems of how to get this done at the, with a shoestring budget.
Yeah. This That budget is something we all have lived with at one point in our, well, most of us have lived with at one point in our lives, right? When I bought property, I didn't want to pay taxes. That was why I bought it. Um, and I had like no budget because I didn't know anything about real estate. I was really stupid. I did everything wrong. Um, and yet, look here, 50 years later, I'm still here and moving. So, yeah, doing it and understanding that when you get in, so many people, again, they listen to these gurus that sell a dream, which is just that, a dream, right? You're going to get in, get a tenant, get rich. Well, reality hits, you're really having a business with a job in the background for a couple of years is not a bad thing to build. You understand the business, you can build it up and then move into the business full time because you're not making $1 million the day you get your first tenant.
Right. No, it could take years to get to that point, especially if you're a high paid employee or contractor. To replace your income, it could take a lot longer than you expect because when you're in the field I was in technology, things move extremely fast. The things that we were doing were exponential. We grew a company 4x in 2 years, and it was already doing millions. And so to see how fast that happens and growing thousands and thousands of accounts every couple months compared to locally real estate, small market compared to even where I'm from in Texas. And it's just who and building those relationships in that community. And it's the same for my investment strategy. I want to find the right properties going forward and make sure that I can hold them long term and manage them myself, because that's one of the reasons I wanted to also go into property management for other people, is so someday I can manage my own.
That's great.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's so much more we could talk about. It feels like We've been sitting fireside, just having the most amazing connected conversation. We really appreciate you being here, because you've given us a bird's eye view into not only taking the leap as far as being a real estate geek, which we all get the bug at some point. That's why you're listening to this show. But also how much of that entrepreneurial sense you need to have, and like expecting the unexpected, being able to plan for 3x, 5x what you think you'll need. You've given us so much wisdom here, and love watching your trajectory. So we are super excited to track with your journey. Thank you for spending time with us here. Where can people go to connect with you and learn more about what you're up to these days?
Yeah, it's at Kannon Real Estate, and that's Kannon with a K. And that's
Right
on
on.
Instagram. And yep.
So Instagram's your main place you hang out. And so everybody, you heard it here. Go connect with this man and follow his journey, because it's an inspiration when you listen to real people having a real world experience and how they're going about building their legacy, one brick at a time, one house at a time, and in his case, one property management business clients at a time. So thanks a million. If you are listening to this on the broadcast on one of our podcast streaming channels, don't go away. We have another amazing guest lined up right after this.
This wraps another episode of Built for This. If you're a real estate investor with a unique edge, apply to join us at builtforthisshow.com/guest.